Mavericks, welcome back to another cracking episode of the podcast. And I'm excited because in 2025, we're going to take a slightly different twist with a few episodes. Caspar and myself are going to jump on and talk about a lot of different topics related to men's health, related to life goals, related to health goals, fitness goals, so many different things. So the podcast will to and fro between conversations with Caspar and I, also having guests on, maybe even having some clients on in the future, which will be exciting to do. But we'll see how this all goes. So today we're going to talk a little bit about goal setting because January's fast approaching and it's the crazy time of the year where everyone wants to jump on board and set big elaborate goals. And we're going to talk about why that fails and a better way to go about it. But before we dive into that, Caspar, nice to see you, mate. How you doing?
Thank you for having me, Stretch. I'm doing very well. It's 7:30 here in the UK and still dark this time of year as we approach the shortest day on the 21st, but I'm up bright and early as usual and excited to be here having this conversation with you, Stretch.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Well, it's about 6 p.m. over here and it's totally opposite. It's bright, it's sunny. I'm looking out the window at the beach. Just went down for a swim, so it's been a good day. Opposite sides of the world, but it's pretty cool that we can connect and do this sort of stuff. So thanks for jumping on board, man. Yeah, let's dive in. Let's really nut this out. So, we're going to be talking about goal setting. And I suppose a lot of men, not just in midlife, want to make big changes, but they rarely follow through. What's been your experience, mate, as a health and fitness coach working in the industry for a long time and now as a life coach? What do you typically see around goal setting?
Well, typically, this time of year, especially, in the UK, as we run up towards Christmas, the foot is taken off the accelerator and there's a lot of indulgence, we could say, over the course of December. And, the usual cycle continues into, your Middlemas between Christmas and New Year when people start to think about like, okay, what might 2025 or what might the next year look like for me? And what do I want to achieve? How do I want to feel? How do I want to experience my day to day? What do I want to create? And a big part of that for most people is orientated around their health. And you and I have both seen it, Stretch. I worked in the physical health and wellness industry as a personal trainer and gym owner for about 10 years before moving into life coaching. And it was the same pattern, every year. A lot of excitement at the beginning of the year, big goals, people setting out big challenges for themselves and starting the year with this real tenacity of this time it's going to be different. This time we're going to stick to it. This time there's going to be this grand change, and all the plans and all the goals that I have written down, they're going to be achieved. And then we just notice this drop off as we move through February and into March. That kind of energy that we have at the beginning of the year starts to dissipate, and people who might have fallen out of consistency with their goals or with the stepping stones that would lead them to their goals. Maybe 1 or 2 days kind of failed and they just slip back into what I call the default mode, the default way of operating, the familiar. And then, the cycle continues.
Yeah,
how about you, Stretch? How do you see it?
Yeah, it's similar, mate. I mean, my experience in health and fitness started in the UK, personal training, working at Globo gyms, working at PT studios. And you just see it ramp up. January, to be honest, wasn't really a busy month because I think a lot of people are still returning from holidays. Everyone's spent their money over Christmas. They're a bit broke. They're waiting for the first paycheck to come in. If February hits, the gym's just manic. There's not enough room to swing a cat. And it just goes crazy. And even now with my online clients, I hate it because February's okay, I'm going to have minimal equipment and I've got a program for these guys in a busy gym. And it can be a nightmare for those guys as well. And even in, owning the gym, owning, momentum training and CrossFit Hackney, February was one of the best months for us in terms of earning money. But at the same time, you would start to see a little bit of a drop off. And it's that same sort of routine, isn't it? Everyone goes through that same cycle. I think the big months in the UK were, February after Christmas, everyone getting into the fitness. And then you're looking at before, August summer holidays, everyone getting back into the gym around that time too. And it just goes peaks and troughs. Whereas I think Australia is a little bit more consistent, but still I know a lot of guys that hit the ground running hard at the start of the year. And then it just drops off as the year goes on. They don't manage to sustain their goals. They don't manage to sustain their routines. And that's really what I want to dive into because you and I now both working, you as a life coach, myself as a health coach, we've got a different approach. And it's an approach I wish I knew more about when I was doing PT. And I've got a story I'll share a little bit later in this podcast about how I probably failed as a coach at the time, and how I could have done better if I'd known what I know now. But that's all part of growth, isn't it? Yeah, so to our listeners, we're going to talk about maybe why traditional goal setting fails. We're going to talk about why having a vision of your future self is important. The power of systems, we're going to dive into that a little bit, and creating lasting change. But I really hope you guys stick around in terms of listeners, because at the end of this podcast, we're going to talk about something you can do today, a small action that potentially can snowball and help you stay on track with the momentum you want to build this year and with the goals that you do set yourself. So with that said, mate, let's sort of dive into goal setting. I think a lot of guys set some big, ambitious, crazy goals. What's some of the biggest goals you think you've heard from your clients that have made you go,
Yeah, I mean, one that always sticks out, and something which, especially as a when I was in my gym business and personal trainer into my gym business, and seeing individuals come through the door with this big goal of running a marathon in this year, and which I think is a great thing to do. It's not that I oppose training for marathons, but it is a big effort, and to go from kind of a general level of fitness to completing a marathon injury-free without having quite serious repercussions is a big challenge. First up, the question is, when was the last time you did a 4-hour walk without sitting down? And there'll be some thinking there, and I think those are the big ones. I guess like big running events, and usually would result in some type of injury, or if it was completed, the training volume was too much too soon, and then off the back of that there would be a burnout of some sort, and which would take a long time to recover from. And how I know both you and I look at fitness, even in the early days of that journey, was it's not about like how fit you are next month, next year. It's like, what does fitness look like for you in 10 years time? Because that's what we're training for, is longevity. It's quality of life. It's vitality and energy. So these kind of short-term kind of milestone gains, it's like, what's the actual cost of that in the long term? So those were goals that I would, obviously I'm not going to step in as a coach and go like, that's a shit goal, but I would challenge them as to like why they've set that goal in the first place, and actually get under the hood a little bit on that. It's like, what's the reason behind this particular goal? Let's go deep on that. Yeah. How about you, mate?
Yeah, coming from a marathon and triathlon background, a good 5 years in the sport. Yeah, I've been there, done that. And my reasons behind that, like at the time, probably was avoidance. Like probably me avoiding the unhappiness I was having in my own life. And training and doing endurance sports was my escape. The endorphins of running and swimming and cycling, and the control that it gave me, like it was a part of my life I could control. So I immersed myself in that to avoid probably the part of my life I couldn't control. And it just let me, avoid that in that sense. Was it good for my health? No, I don't think it was. Would I go back and do it again? Hell no. Knowing what I know now. But at the time, I thought it was a great thing for me, and I got swept up in that. I've also worked with a lot of clients who've competed in Ironmans and marathons and triathlons. And yeah, it is asking that, like, do you know what this is doing to your body? Is this really what you want to work on? Yeah, it's a great goal to have. Okay, go ahead and do it. Let's work on that. I once had a client in his late 40s came to me, wanted to run a marathon. We did it. He had plenty of time to train for it. He ran it, loved it. And then a couple of years later, he came back to me, telling me he wanted to run 12 marathons in 12 months. And I'm like, why? Like, what's the driving force behind that? And what are going to be the impacts of that? And to be honest, as a coach, I don't want to step in and coach you on that one, because I don't see the positive coming out of that. I just see the negative coming out of that. You're going to get injured. You're going to get burnt out. It's going to have health complications in the long run. So I don't see the positive out of that. So I think sometimes, as coaches, we can probably just jump in and go, hey, this guy's going to pay me lots of money and I'm just going to help him with this goal and tell him he can do it. But these days, I'm not so keen to do that. I'm just going to put it back on them and say, well, if you want to do it, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. But, I think you've got to really start to question, really, why is that important? So yeah, I agree with you, mate. Looking into those goals and really figuring out what's behind that, and maybe what they're trying to avoid. If that's the goal, is there something else in your life that you're running from?
Yeah.
Is the marathon the
Or
solution? Maybe not.
yeah, or trying to achieve through the process of goal setting. Like, you brought in with that share of your stretch, and thank you for that. Like, around that sense of control, or that sense of escape in some way, and committing to like a training routine where you do take on that sensation of control and potentially escapism from the things that you don't, or the direction you don't want to look in. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, goal setting, but I know that in this conversation we're going to really kind of dial down on the why and actually get to the essence of goal creation, and that's a big part of actually achieving what we set out for ourselves,
Yeah,
is
100%.
tapping into the
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, 100%, mate. There's an exercise I want to put to you as we get through this presentation, and it's one that the listeners can probably do around their goals that I think will be worthwhile. But I got another bit of a story to share, and it's about, I suppose, the time of owning the gym and the time of working as a coach, very much face to face. I still work as a coach now; it's all online, but face to face with clients. Like, the gym was later in my PT career. Like, I had 4.5 years at the gym, but before that, there was a good 4.5 years of PT. And during that whole time, there were the clients always coming and going. You're always getting new clients. You're turning over clients. Some clients will stick with you. I've had some clients, 10 years, still train with me, and it's awesome. But there'll be clients that would come and, they would do everything right, and, they would get great results. They would set goals and they would get their results. There would be other clients that had exactly the same goals, and they would come and they would fail. And I could be using the same program with these guys. Let's say it's weight loss. Some guys are smashing it. And then I'm using the same program with these other clients and they're not seeing any results. I'm talking to them about the same nutrition. I'm giving them the same nutrition advice. I'm helping them exactly the same way, the same information. Yet some clients, probably 50% of my clients, would go on and be really successful, and the other 50% would fail. And in my mind, I would tell myself that these guys are not doing the work outside of the gym. It's their fault. It's your fault. You're not doing the work outside of the gym. It's not my fault. I know the system works. I see clients getting results all the time. And it wasn't until after I did my health coaching course that the penny dropped. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault. I was failing them as a coach because the system that I was applying, the programming that I was applying, the education that I was giving wasn't meeting the client where they were at. I wasn't coming back to understand their lifestyle, their career, their stress, everything that was happening in their lifestyle, and how I could best guide them and support them so that they could find a system or a process or a way forward that suited their lifestyle. And maybe their goals were too elaborate for what they could achieve right now in their lifestyle, but we could have honed that back in to make it a smaller goal and given them the motivation and support to be able to achieve that goal. And it really was a big mindfuck for me because I was like, wow, here I am helping clients set goals. Here I am telling them that can be achieved because I know clients who have achieved that goal, but I'm not asking enough questions to figure out, can this client achieve that goal? And if not, what can we do to get them a step closer to that? So that was a big lesson that I've learned, probably only in the last few years. And it's something I wish I'd known a lot earlier. Are you much the same, mate? Were you in the gym time, were you pretty much down that line, and did life coaching teach you something different? Or what's been the transition on your thinking around goal setting and helping your clients achieve goals?
I'm so glad that you brought that in, Stretch, because it was the problem that I just couldn't figure out. I would see our membership group within the gym, a very varied bunch of individuals, but all like highly committed to the program, to their health, to the goals, had great community around them, great coaches around them. And I just couldn't work it out. I'm like, everybody's in the group, and especially outside of personal training, everybody's on the same program. Everybody understands the importance of their nutrition outside of the gym, their sleeping outside of the gym. All of the levers that support the quality of your health and well-being and your ability to achieve the goals that you set for yourself. Again, some people really excel, and then the others just, they weren't getting fitter, they weren't getting stronger. We knew this because we were running testing. We were doing 10-minute air bike tests, or 3 rep max on your deadlift, 3 rep max on your back squat, max pull-up tests. We'll do like certain fitness tests that really show us, are you actually getting fitter and stronger? And we can measure that over time. And again, some are excelling and some are just not. They're not going anywhere. And it wasn't really until I started going down the life coaching path. I did a life coaching module with OPEX Fitness on their CCP, which is their coaches certificate program, which really just kind of opened my mind. It also kind of opened Pandora's box a little bit, because once I looked in this direction, I couldn't unsee it. And starting to having conversations at the front desk with various members coming through and getting to understand them and their challenges outside of the gym. And one thing that kept coming up was the amount of stress that people were experiencing, which was robbing them of their peace, disrupting their sleep. And I'm like, okay, so it's not so much about the training program, it's not so much about the nutrition, but it's actually about what this individual has on their plate day to day. And if I can help with this and help them navigate the stresses that they're experiencing in their lives, then we're going to get better results in the gym and better results in their quality of life. So that was a big one for me. And obviously I got deeper and deeper and deeper into that, and then was like, well, look, the power here in life coaching is just, it has the capacity to really shift how people experience their lives at a very, very deep level. Yeah. Across your health, your career, your relationships with yourself and other, and how you navigate your world and how you experience your life. And yeah, that was my journey into it. But it did start with that. It started with this kind of question. I'm like, what is going on here? And why are some people able to really crush their goals and others just stay stuck? What's that about?
Yeah, 100%, mate. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's just the advice giving in our industry. It's all about advice giving. We hear about 12-week boot camps or 30-day nutrition challenges, or these extreme workout programs, or extreme calorie counting and making deficits and all these sort of things. And they're all systems that can potentially work for some people, but they don't work for everybody. And sometimes when you apply a system to someone that isn't going to be able to stick to that system, they've got no hope of that being successful. And it's not the client's issue. The system is the wrong system. And we've got to be cautious about that, because our industry is just flooded with all these people giving advice and arguing that their system is the best and this is the best way to achieve X goal. But for who? Who is that for? And will that system work for me? And if it doesn't, then I'm only going to waste my time going into that system. And not to say that all nutrition plans suck or all systems suck. There's a lot of great systems out there, a lot of great programs. And, owning a gym just like you did, mate, the environment and the community was one thing that would help some of those people achieve their results, because they're showing up to the gym to be in the community. They're showing up by other people. There's the support system that comes from the community and all that sort of stuff. And that really works for some people. For others, it doesn't. And I think, as an individual, you need to figure out your own path forward. And that's one of the beautiful things about health coaching and life coaching, is we're there to guide you on your journey. But at the end of the day, the responsibility is yours, or the responsibility is the client's, and they've got to be willing to step into the arena. They've got to be willing to take control of their health or of their life and to do the actions. And then often we come back to the excuses. And that's the next thing I want to bring up, because you enlightened me a lot with this. And, the common excuses is, I don't have time, or I'm too busy, I have too many responsibilities, or I'll get to that next week, or I'll get to that next month. I know that's something that we both have to deal with, Cass, but when those sort of things come up, what's the first thing that pops into your mind when a client says that to you? Be honest.
I'm going to be honest here. It often comes up when things get challenging, or I'm asking a client to look in a direction that is uncomfortable. And, they may have a lot going on, but this thing that I've asked them to do isn't easy. And it requires them to really look deeply at themselves. And that can create quite a lot of resistance. And as soon as there's a little bit of resistance, it's like, okay, that's not a priority. I'm off to do something else. And yeah, so when somebody says to me, I don't have enough time, it's it's either one of two things. It's either that's challenging and I don't want to go there, or it's just not a priority. But it's more likely to be the challenge, because I wouldn't have a client in my space who's turning up and paying a considerable amount of money to work with me one-on-one and say it's not a priority. So usually it's some type of resistance, but that's all great feedback for me, because I can then inquire into that. Okay, what else was going on in your week that was more important than figuring out, the outcome of this exercise that I've set? And that actually gives us quite a lot to work with, and we can really go and look at that resistance and see, well, where else is it showing up in your life when things get hard or when things get challenging. Like, how are you choosing to be, and what are you doing otherwise? And really coming back to this great saying, which is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So it's an interesting one, and I really like that catch. Like, when there's an excuse, I want to not just take the excuse, I want to really understand like what that's about and go deep on it. And it will be uncomfortable for the person sitting opposite.
Yeah, I like the idea of, I think you said it to me once when we were talking about, these common excuses that men make. And I think your reply was, it's bullshit. And I think that's a great way to put it, because I like what you said there. It's like, let's say we're stepping into something that's uncomfortable. We're stepping into them, talking about, let's say it's medical checkups. They know they've got high cholesterol or something like that. And we're talking about, okay, you need to go get your blood work done. We want to look at your functional range of blood work. And they're like, no, I'll get to that later. Don't really want to look at that. There's this fear there. Or another way to look at it is there's something that might be out of their control that they can't control. So we avoid that fear, or we avoid that discomfort, and we make an excuse that I'm too busy or I've got too many responsibilities. But deep down, it's the fear or that loss of control that their guys are moving away from. And in reality, that's probably the area where they need to move towards. And it's uncomfortable. Yes. And it's difficult. It's interesting. I was talking to a client about procrastination. Like, I'm always procrastinating. I should do that. Oh, I'll get to it later. Oh, I might do that. And it's like, well, procrastination is avoidance. It's avoidance of the discomfort. It's the avoidance of the hard conversations. It's the avoidance of failure or that fear. You're avoiding it because it's easier. And I know, because what I said to you before about the marathons and triathlons for 4.5 years, that was avoidance. That was me not facing my real life and me filling my space with training and competing in triathlons, because I didn't want to think about my relationships. I didn't want to think about my career. I didn't want to think about, the things that my mates were doing or what was happening around me. I just wanted to be able to separate myself from that and immerse myself in something else. And I was avoiding those conversations, or I was avoiding that discomfort, but replacing it with something that probably wasn't serving me. And it was running. It was fear. I was running away from the challenge or the obstacle there. So I think, that when we hear that I don't have time, or I'm too busy, it's really looking deep into that and questioning that. Well, why do you feel that you're so busy that you can't do this, but yet you can go and do this? Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
There's so much in that. And there's one exercise that I have, which is actually part of our Top Gun course, which is, it is challenging for people. It really means meeting themselves, honestly meeting themselves. And that can be challenging, and it uncovers a lot of maybe buried truth. And once that truth comes up, and once we become aware of it, that might mean having to make some pretty big shifts in your life. And that can be uncomfortable as well, because we like regularity. We find control through the norm, through rhythm and routine. And often change requires us to move outside of that. And that's where unknown can come up. We don't like unknown. We want predictability. So this is also a challenge in actually achieving the goals we set out for ourselves, or making big life shifts. Is actually, it requires us to step fearlessly into the unknown and trust that the process that you have mapped out for yourself is heart-led and is moving you in a direction that has a lot of meaning.
Yeah, I like what you said there. I think that's valuable, and being able to sit with that and have space to question that is something like a lot of guys don't do. And to circle back to goals, because obviously that's our topic, I think, this sort of comes in where people set a goal and they have that huge level of motivation, especially in January, to start working towards that goal. And it might be 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe they'll even get 4 weeks where that motivation and drive will stay high. But then those excuses will sort of start to come in, and that's when it starts to break apart. And it could be a fact that they're not seeing the result they want in that short period of time. So it's like this fear of, I'm going to fucking fail, so I'm going to step off this because I don't want to fail. It's easier to move back into my old patterns, my old behaviors, and just say I'm too busy than it is to keep pushing down this path and not see results. So I'm just going to fall off the bandwagon. And then it also circles into like I said, these 12-week programs or 30-day programs, or what the mainstream health and fitness industry push towards us about, like this all or nothing. Like, you've got to cut calories and you've got to be in a deficit and you've got to train 6 times a week and you've got to do high intensity and you've got to do X, Y, and Z, whatever the frigging thing is. It's like more is better. And that whole sort of approach that's on there, which just leads to burnout, injury, or frustration. And that circles back again to those excuses of, I can't do this, so I'm going to pull the pin again. And it's just that infinite loop that we see so many people go on in the gym business, or even in just health, or probably even in life coaching. And I think it comes back to that why. Like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And is it something that's going to serve you for the long run, or is it a short-term quick fix that you're just going to end up breaking yourself with, or it's not going to be something that you sort of implement? Yeah. Would you agree, mate? Or have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, firstly, I think it'd be really interesting to our listeners is under, you've spoken about that why. Can you give us an example of that stretch?
Oh, that's a good question, mate. That's a good question. I suppose I touched on this before, and I was like, there's this exercise we can do in coaching, and it's called the 5 whys. And it's like, especially around goal setting, because someone will come with a goal. And the goal might be, I want to lose weight. Okay. Sounds like a good enough goal. But what's the why behind that goal? So you know how little kids always ask, why? But why, Dad? But why? But why? And you keep giving them an answer, and every time it's, but why? But why? Because it keeps coming back up. So it's like, okay, if you've got the goal of, I want to lose weight, let's say it's 20 kilos. My first response as a coach would be, why? So you got to sit there and think about that. Why do you want to lose 20 kilos? And it might come back down to confidence. Well, if I lost 20 kilos, I'd feel more confident. Awesome. Why? Why is that important to you? Why is confidence important to you? Because I'm afraid that maybe my partner's losing interest in me because I'm overweight. Well, okay, that's a good reason. You need that confidence because it's important to you. It's important to your relationship with your partner. That's awesome. But why is that important to you? And like, oh, well, I'm afraid maybe my partner might lose interest, or that, our sex life might drop off, or whatever it is, that why is behind there. Things are slowing down. We're not having our normal relationship. I'm afraid that in the future, things might go the way I don't want them to go. This is starting to dig a lot deeper than I want to lose weight. This is really nutting down to what's important. And it's just by asking why. And the 5 whys is 5 times. So then it's like, well, why is that something that, you're worried about, or why is that important to you? And it could be that, well, I'm scared if I don't lose weight, I can't be the partner that I want to be, and I can't be the husband or father that I want to be. And what I like about that is it goes deeper than the physical, because a physical goal is great. I want to lose weight. I want to look better, whatever. That's the physical goal. But the emotional goal, that's so much more powerful. If you can tap into that and you can find out what the client's emotional goal is, they're going to be far more likely to stick to that goal, or the training program, or the diet, or getting to bed earlier, or managing their stress, or whatever it is that they need to do to be able to move closer to the man or the person they want to become, because that emotional driver is so much more powerful. And that's where, like, the 5 whys. So if you've got a goal, if you're a listener and you've got a goal, ask yourself why 5 times, and just dig deeper into the importance of that goal, or why that goal matters to you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Stretch. It's so powerful. And just to echo that, like, connecting to that emotional driver behind a goal is where you want to be. I mean, that's such a great start point for success. But I also think it's interesting to talk about, like, you mentioned the 12-week programs, which are very rigid and they're cookie cutter, and they, may work for some people, but not others. And, we have a very different approach to goal actualization. And one thing that really stands out for me, and I know this is the same for you, is meeting clients at where they're at currently, assessing where they are, and asking them just, in one particular area. It might be, we're having a conversation today really around like holistic well-being, but I'm just going to pull out one point. It could be around like health. How do you make one positive step forward in your health that you can be consistent with over a duration of time? And then you may ask the same question, is like, how do you move yourself from a level like 4 in your relationship with your partner to a level 5? Like, what is required there? Is it sustainable? Is it connected to your emotional driver? And can you be consistent with this step over time?
Yeah. Yeah. What I like about what you just said there, and it was really like, you got to tune in to listen to this, but it was going from a 4 to a 5. Because I think one of the things too, when we talk about goals, we talked about earlier, the ambitious goal. It's going from a 4 to a 10. And that's what we set ourselves, this unrealistic, unattainable, unachievable for most people goals. And we look at the end destination, because that's what a goal is. A goal is a destination. I'm at point A and I want to get to point D. Okay, but if I don't go through point B, C, and E, then how do I get to D? But if you've got that expectation of getting to a 10 out of 10, but you haven't yet got to a 5 out of 10, then why didn't you just go for a 5 out of 10? Like I like what you said there. It's just like, let's look at the small thing, the small, achievable, attainable thing. Turn the dial up, as you say, from the 4 to the 5 is taking my relationship to a higher level. That's a success. That's worth celebrating. And then take it from a 5 to a 6 if that's what you want to do. But yeah, I think the gradual, small, achievable, attainable things are a great way to sort of help us break down those big goals. And we're not going for the quick fix, like we said. We're going for long-term results. And if you want your relationship to be at a 10 out of 10, that can happen. But let's just take it one step at a time. And I think it's a good thing to do. Quotes, while we're on quotes, James Clear, one of his most well-known quotes, and it's coming up on the internet all the time right now. And it's, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And it's about building that system that supports that. And that system has got to be tailored to the individual. And like you said, meeting the client where they're at. Well, where is the client? What's the system we can do to get them from a 4 to 5? Because that's a different system to the system that's going to get them from a 5 to a 6 and maybe a 6 to a 7. And the system has to change depending on the client's lifestyle, and just being able to understand that.
Yeah. I'd love to give our listeners an example of a system, and I'm going to share a very powerful move that I made. Gosh, it must have been about 6, maybe even 7 years ago now. And we were approaching autumn here in the UK. I was running my gym business with my business partners, and you know what it's like, Stretch. It's stressful. There's a lot of plates to spin, a lot of balls in the air, a lot of problems to solve on the fly. And I used to wake up in the morning and hit my alarm, or my alarm would sound on my phone, and I would hit my alarm to turn it off. Now I have my phone in my hand, and I would gravitate towards my inbox and go and start checking through my emails. And then I would go from my email to my WhatsApp. And then on some days, I might even go from my WhatsApp to my social media. So I'm letting the world in first thing in the morning. And sometimes I would read something or see something that upset me or triggered me, and my day would then start quite heightened, quite alert, quite forward. And my mind would be thrown into like, what needs to be accomplished today? What problems need to be overcome? What do I need to do? And I'd get up and I'd start kind of rushing my morning and start my day in this very kind of heightened state. And it was really, really impacting the levels of stress that I was experiencing unknowingly, because that was just like my default mode. That was my default way of being. That's the only thing that I that's how I operated. And I couldn't really see it for what it was. So we were getting into autumn, and I thought to myself, I've been reading a lot about our circadian rhythms and how important that is, and how important our sleep is. And so how can I turn the dial here? How can I improve my sleeping environment? So I decided, I was like, I'm going to go and buy an illuminating alarm clock. And I set it up, and I thought to myself, put my alarm on, set the time. And I thought to myself, I was like, I don't need this and my phone. So I thought, well, I'll just switch my phone off. 8 p.m. Just turn my phone off. I was like, great, that's nice. No phone for an hour and a half before I go to sleep. And read in bed, and the light slowly kind of goes down and like helped me kind of drift off to sleep. And then I woke up the next morning to this light just kind of slowly getting lighter, and this alarm sound. And I spent some time just kind of waking up, and I got out of bed, and my morning was just completely different. I sat down on the sofa and watched the light come through the window, and I checked in with myself and like how I was feeling, what was present, what was on my mind, like, is my body tense, how's my breathing? And then went to make myself some breakfast, sat down, I was like, oh, I could write a couple of words in my journal. And I thought to myself, wow, like this feels different. And my day just felt so much more like larger and fuller, and I had so much more presence. And I thought, God, this feels different. And that was just on one day, right? And then I thought to myself, okay, how is this going to be if I start every day like this? Every day kind of coming home to myself, every day connecting to myself, every day giving myself that space to breathe before switching my phone on and allowing the world in. So I set my stage for the day, set my intention for the day, and then would go about tackling whatever problem that needed to be tackled, but in a much more centered state. And honestly, that like one small change, that one shift of my system was a complete game changer. Yeah. So I myself as somebody who's very into health and well-being and self-development, I'm always looking for these small dials, these small twists. How do I upgrade my system? How do I move from a 6 to a 7, or even just like a 6 to a 6.5? And how do I get consistency with that until it becomes so habitual that that's just how I am. That's how I operate. And that's how I've succeeded with goal actualization, is just zooming out and understanding what's the destination that I'm going to, and then how do I reverse engineer that process with the systems that I have set up.
Yeah, it's awesome, mate. There's so much in that I want to point out. The first thing I picked up that you said was, what do I need to do today? And it's like that okay, you've checked everything and you're just feeling fucking overwhelmed because there's so much of the outer coming in. And it's what do I need to do today? Where was the what do I want to do today? Like waking up with what do I want to do today? But then it goes from there to like, okay, the simple thing you did was you got rid of your fucking phone, because that's the big distraction. And when the phone was gone, then it's the question of, well, what do I replace it with? And it's like, okay, you've got this alarm clock, but then that alarm clock has turned into waking up a lot more relaxed, a lot more present, into journaling, into breathing, into checking in. Like, it's nearly built the system itself from one action of getting rid of the phone. And so many people are glued to their bloody phones, and I've been guilty of it before, but my phone doesn't go into the bedroom now. Like, I turn it off at night and it stays out of the room because I know when it's in there, when the alarm goes off in the morning, the first thing I'm going to do is pick up my phone. And if it's in my hand, I'm probably like you, I'm going to check things. And it's like not the time of day where I want to be checking things. But that one small change, like, it's so minute and so small, most guys wouldn't even think about it. Or when they think about it, like, oh, what's that going to do? Like, that's nothing. How does that help me improve my health and fitness? Well, fucking it does a lot. Like, if you replace it with, just what Caspar said in terms of his system that he built to replace that, and how he approaches his day and how that sets him up, improving sleep, so many benefits come from that. And it's just one such tiny, small action, which is so powerful. So awesome work on sharing that story, Cass, because I think it just sort of shows how sometimes the smallest step can create the biggest win, or it can create the big transformation. Everyone's going for these 12-week crazy workout routines and cutting calories and doing all this shit that they probably can't sustain. And you've just created so much space in your life by turning your phone off at 8 p.m. Yeah, it's awesome, mate. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Also, at the end of that, you talked about like this idea of like how you want your life to look. And it's something that we said we'd talk about tonight, but we've just sort of glossed over a little bit. I want to touch on vision. And I think that's important. So can you talk to us a little bit about maybe vision and what you do around vision in life coaching? Because I use vision in health coaching too. But why do you feel vision's important? And can you give an example of like, what do we mean when we talk about vision?
Yeah. Vision creation is a huge part of the work that I do one-on-one with my clients, with my one-on-one clients. But then I also bring that into our course that we're running, the Top Gun Academy, and it's a module within that program that I have in Top Gun. And how I look at it is it's incredibly important to know our destination. It helps us with everyday decision making, and it also gives us a lot of clarity, which takes away procrastination. But the vision creation process is beautiful. It's relatively simple, and I ask 3 questions. What do I want to create, or what do I want to achieve? Who do I want to become? And how do I want to experience my day-to-day life? And I give this exercise and my clients or my group to really tune into this heart space and into the gut, and remove any doubts, or remove any can'ts, shoulds, any of this sort of negative language, and just really dream big. And it's a beautiful process, and one that can take some time, and it takes some digging to unfold. But it really reveals a lot of truth, which, as I said earlier in this conversation, can be challenging. Let's say, for example, an individual's on a career path that they know deep down is fulfilling them, isn't meeting their needs, or isn't giving them meaning in their life anymore. Their values may have changed and they know it, but uncovering that truth can be scary, right? Because it really shows us, actually, like, my heart's desire isn't this, it's something else. And then like that then creates a lot of discomfort and confusion and challenge as to how to actually step into this new path. So the vision process is a big one, but it essentially like creates the North Star that orientates all our decision making around. When we are confronted with options, we go, well, is the option A going to move me closer towards my goal or further away from it? But we need to know what the outcome is, and it needs to be heart-centered, rather than like, what does my parent expect me to do? What does my partner expect me to do? Who do I need to be for other people, rather than like, who do I need to be for myself to bring high levels of meaning into my life, meaning and purpose? And so yeah, having the vision is incredibly important, because it also connects to that emotional aspect of what we're talking about around the why behind our goals. So once we can connect to that, and we're like, this is what I fucking want, like with all of my heart, and like that's the North Star, then we can start to reverse engineer that and go, okay, well, where am I in comparison to this vision that I have? Okay, cool, this is where I am, through doing like a life audit or life assessment or health assessment, for example, and then asking ourselves, like, how do I move just one step closer towards this?
Yep.
What do I need to do, and who do I need to be? And that's the power of the vision.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I think vision is so powerful, and it's often overlooked. I think, especially for a lot of guys, we might have a little bit of a vision about the future. Like, there was a time in my life where I was changing careers from corporate to personal training. And then in personal training, I was like, well, one day I'm going to own a gym. That was a vision. But I didn't really sit down and think why that was important to me. Like, why do I want to own a gym? And like, how am I going to get there? And who does that make me become as a gym owner? Like, what am I striving for to tick that box? I didn't really ask the questions, went down that journey and became a gym owner. I loved every minute of it. But still, it would have been nice to think about it in a bit more depth and really get clarity, get really clear on it. And even though I wanted to be the gym owner, did I go down the most efficient path and the right path in that journey of becoming a gym owner? I think I could have done better there. And I think what you sort of said there about once you've got that clear vision of who you want to become or what you want to create, then it's like, well, now we can start to put together the map of how to get there. And that map comes down to every single decision you make. So it's like in my day-to-day life, if I want to become that man who's going to be the gym owner, and I'm at this point in this decision where someone's offering me to take on more clients and, invest money into X, Y, and Z, or, to change parts of the world that I'm living in, is that going to move me closer to that goal, or is it going to move me further away from it? Like, that helps me make that day-to-day decision because I know who I want to become. I know my why behind who I want to become. So every decision I make has to be based around that. And it just gives us so much more clarity, because I think we can get overwhelmed and we can get confused. We see this great thing, this new diet, this new fucking training routine, this fucking new investment opportunity as a guy, whatever it is. And if we don't have clarity, or we don't have a vision about where we want to go in our life, that direction, then we could invest in this or we could buy into this. And it's just a waste of time, energy, and effort and resources, because it's not aligned with who we want to become. So that clarity and that vision work, like, it's just so powerful. And it's one of those things I think I wish I'd known about it sooner, or I wish I'd actually sat down and done that work sooner to figure out, what was important to me and why it was important to me, because it would have made things a lot smoother in my life.
It takes us from a reactive state to a responsive state, which I think is very important. It means that we're not just like knee-jerk, oh, that looks nice, that shiny thing, that might work. It takes all of that out, and it moves us into a place of much more, we have a lot more clarity and a lot more centeredness and a lot more direction and a lot more kind of trust in ourselves that that's the right direction to take, which then removes the procrastination. I mean, the real like step there is the vision creation process is, it does require you to like slow down and zoom out, which is like, let's be honest, like people just don't do that often. And they just don't have, the space for it. Again, that's where, the excuse comes in. If I give this exercise to somebody and there's a bit of resistance, or I haven't had time to it, or like I haven't quite got to it, it's like, okay, but it is very important. And once you have this down, like, it's going to be a game changer. But again, like, what can be uncovered within it can be relatively challenging.
Yeah, no, exactly, mate. Dude, we've covered a lot. I think there's a lot in this conversation we've already unpacked, and there's so much more to talk about. But let's dig deep and think about it. Like, the topic is goals, and we're talking about, like, a lot of guys set goals. A lot of people set goals in January, and probably by March, if they're lucky, they've failed, or they've not stuck with it. They've not followed through. So what are some takeaways from what we've talked about? Because we've covered, like, okay, goals are a sense of direction. We've talked about systems. We've talked about overcoming excuses and maybe that discomfort and fear, loss of control, division setting, all that sort of stuff. But what are your big takeaways, or what do you want our listeners to take away from this conversation today?
Yeah, that's a good question, Stretch. I think the big one is connecting to the why behind your goal, and also understanding where you're at in terms of the goal, and understanding, okay, well, it's not about taking that huge leap and going from like a 4 to a 10. It's about going from a 4 to a 5. And that also creates a lot more ease, and takes away that like high level expectation that we place on ourselves to actually achieving the goal quickly. And then you can ask yourself that question. It's like, well, if this is my goal, my big picture goal, and this is where I am right now, like, what is the first step in the direction of this goal? And just taking that first step and just rinsing and repeating that for a number of months until it becomes totally automatic or ingrained into your way of being and operating. And then from that place, again, like you said, Stretch, if you want to take it to a 10, it's like, okay, now I'm at a 5. Like, that's my level. Like, if I want to go to a 6, what do I do next? And if we can take that approach with, like, in every area of our lives, like, that builds sustainability, and that builds real powerful change over time. It's the aggregation of marginal gain.
Yeah, perfect, mate. I like it. I like what you said. It's about creating the sustainability. And that's where we go wrong so often, is what we try to implement is just unsustainable for where we are in our life right now. And it's about finding the small incremental changes that allow us to move forward one step closer, turn the dial one notch, just go a little bit more. And again, that comes back to the systems and finding out the system. You know, the example we gave earlier was like, okay, I want to lose 20 kilos, and finding that the why behind it, the emotional why. But then it's like, okay, so how do we lose 20 kilos? Most people go, well, I'm going to eat clean and I'm going to train hard. What the fuck does that look like? That's so vague and so unspecific that it's just like, well, you don't even know what you're doing. You're just training hard and trying to eat clean. What does that look like? How does that work? And a system, like getting clarity on the system, could be, okay, I go to the gym 3 times a week and do a 60-minute strength training session. That could be the first step in the system. And it's like getting that ingrained, like you said. Can I sustain that? And if I can't, that's not failure. That's just showing you right now in your life that that's not sustainable. Fine. Make it 2 sessions a week. Make it a 45-minute session instead of a 60-minute session. Find what's sustainable and implement that, because consistency will always win over intensity. And if you can find the routine that's going to work for you, you're going to make steps forward. If you get that right, then it might be like, okay, I'm not going to think about training and adding more training. What about nutrition? What's one thing I can do in nutrition? Eat 40 grams of quality protein for breakfast. There's your goal. Not counting calories, weighing macros, fucking meal prep, like all the crazy things that we're told we have to do. Unsustainable. Like, just start with one simple thing, 40 grams for breakfast each day. That feels good. I feel I can do that. Awesome. If that's what you can do, implement that, get that working. Then if that works, it might be time to look at your sleep, like what you did. Take the phone away, or set that alarm at 9 p.m. It goes off when it's, okay, I'm going to get to bed now. This is my evening routine. I'm going to get to bed. Does that feel sustainable? Is that something you can implement? Now you've started to build a system, training, nutrition, sleep, all these little small dots that start to connect that you can put into this routine that will change your life dramatically. And it's something that you're just going to continue to be able to turn the dial up on. Once one thing becomes habit and routine, try something else, and be willing to experiment. Be willing to fail, but don't see it as failure. Just see it as, right now, that's too much. How can I take that little step back and just celebrate the small win instead of getting frustrated, burnt out, overwhelmed, and doing fuck all? You know, I think that's the big part of it, isn't it?
Yeah. I love that stretch. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that with us. And just one thing that I hear at the end is like, there's no such thing as failure. It's just feedback.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Dude, so good to talk to you about this. Like, I mean, you and I bounce ideas off each other all the time. Like, we're always talking about different coaching things. We're sharing, you know, some of the stuff we're going through, some of the stuff we might be seeing with clients, figuring out the best path forward, the way that we can address this, the way that we can help our clients find the clarity, the simplicity, the easy steps forward. You know, we've put together a couple of little things that, you know, we want to talk about here. One is like the Top Gun Academy, and the other one is Reclaim Your Edge. What would you like to say about our Top Gun Academy here? Let me throw it at you first.
Try and keep it short. Wow. The Top Gun Academy, I mean, I just think it's the most amazing I think the Top Gun Academy is the most incredible amalgamation of health coaching and life coaching. It really covers like all bases. And the program I've personally put together for our guys in the cohort, and the Top Gun cohort, is very well thought out. And it really uncovers a lot. It helps us gain clarity. It connects us to the emotional drivers behind the goals. We go through the vision creation process, which again, as I said earlier, is a big one, and it really creates that North Star. And the idea behind the program, the 3-month program that we have created, is that it provides like a very, very, very solid foundation for individuals to go through and then just launch off. You know, it's not just like, here's like a 3-month program, like here are some objectives that you need to hit, and then it's kind of revert back to the default mode. It's about disrupting that default mode and about giving our guys the tools and support to create their own systems and really tune into like their own path, and then supporting those guys walk it.
Yeah, wicked, mate. I like it. I'm going to add to that and say, yeah, our unique selling point is, where do you find a program that offers life coaching, health coaching, and personal training all in one? And they're all very closely linked to each other. And when you start to do this work and you start to see that, you can see how important your health is for your life and how important your happiness, fulfillment, and purpose in life is for your health, and how training can support that. And there are so many elements that you and I both bring to the table that just interconnect so well. And the feedback we're getting from the guys who've gone through the beta launch, has been so positive about, these life-changing experiences they've been on. The other thing I want to say is it is a system, but it's not a system in a sense that it's not generic. The guys that come on the program are doing very different things, and we're here to guide and support you to build your own system. And that's what it does really, really well. It asks you those powerful questions. It's going to put you in those uncomfortable positions. And most men are probably not ready for the course, to be honest. And if you're not ready to do the work, then it's probably not for you. But if you are the guy that really wants to make significant transformations in your life and with your health, this is going to be a game changer. And it's getting better with each iteration. So in February next year, 2020, I believe it is, we're going to be launching, our next round of the Top Gun Academy. And both Cass and I are very excited about this. And it's going to be limited spots. There's only 10 spots available, and you're going to have to apply. And that's probably going to be an uncomfortable process in itself. But if that's something that you're ready to step into, if you're ready to step into the arena, if you're ready to do the work, then jump on the website, go and fill out the application form ASAP. And don't be left out, because it's going to be one of those things that we only run probably every sort of 3 to 4 months, and spots are very limited. So now's your chance to get in and go for it. So that's our main program. That's what Cass and I have been working on. I'm really enjoying, and we can't wait to connect with more guys who want to go through that. But if you're not quite ready for that and you want to have a bit of a taster, we've also got a free course, and it's called Reclaim Your Edge, that Cass and I put together. What would you like to say about that, Cass? I'll throw you under the bus again.
Yeah, thanks for that, Stretch. Yeah, I think it's a really great introduction to the work that we do. And it's very different from what you're likely to find anywhere else. And I know from my contribution to that course, it is really just, I've introduced some exercises that helps just kind of like, as I said, disrupt the default mode and shifts your perspective a little bit on health and well-being, and starts to like plant the seeds a little bit as to, okay, like what sustainable changes can I make now that are going to have a big impact? And it's got a ton of value. It's a short course. You could probably move through it in a week. Most of the videos that we've created are between kind of 5 and 10 or 12 minutes long, and there's just a short written course or short written exercises under each lesson. And I think there are 7 lessons in total. So it's a really easy, digestible course, but it packs a lot of heat. It's a good taster of what Stretch and I are about.
Yeah, I would say it's the light version, in a sense of like, it's challenging. And I would say that a lot of guys will probably jump into that. They'll open it up, they'll watch all the videos, they'll read the questions, and they might not do the work, because there will be those uncomfortable questions. Like you said, it's going to rock the boat. It's going to challenge them a little bit to step outside the norm. And what I want to say is, if you don't answer the questions, if you don't sit down and create space and create time to answer those questions, you're always going to be stuck where you are right now. You're always going to be taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, or just feel like you're running the hamster wheel, because you're not digging into the emotional connection behind your goals. You're not asking the why, and you're not really being able to make a vision or decide who you want to become and action that. So the work and the uncomfortableness is the part of the success or part of the solution. So step into that. Don't just watch the videos and read the questions. Make the time, okay? Because you will be surprised how sometimes answering those questions can create such a big aha moment and such a big shift in your space that can change everything. So I think the course is going to help you discover what's holding you back. It's going to allow you to redefine what success looks like for you, and it's going to transform your life. And it's free. It's your free taster to get in there and do it. So you can jump on the website and you can download that, or you can go through that course and sign up to it. And yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to shoot us a message inside the system there, and we'll definitely be able to help you. Cass, is there anything else you want to add at the end of this episode today?
I think we've covered a lot of ground, Stretch, and often I think it's best not to put too much into this space and potentially just let our listeners percolate on what we've shared. But I would encourage anybody who's here listening to us wrap up this podcast to head to the website and check out that course. And also, if there are any questions that any of you guys have, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to hear from you. And very excited to speak to other guys who are willing to, again, like step into that arena and do the hard work, because that is what is required to step out of our default mode, our standard way of operating against. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if you're wanting a different result, it is going to require some discomfort, and it's going to require like looking in the direction of truth and taking brave steps towards, a new way of being and operating.
Yeah, nice one, Cass. I like it. Just to finish up on, at the start I said we're going to give you something you can take away today that you can action, that can help. And so what I want you to do right now is I want you to write down one small thing that you could do tomorrow or that you could do today that's going to move you closer to the man you want to become. And don't make it going from a 4 to a 10. Make it from going from a 4 to a 5. Something that just feels, I can do that. And then repeat it again and again and again. And it could be as simple as scheduling in your workout for the week. It could be as simple as turning your phone off before you go to bed. Find that one little thing that you can do today and then repeat it again and again and again. And make it feel something that's achievable and sustainable that you can do. Because you're not stuck. You're just following the wrong system. And if you can change your system, you can change your life. All right, I'm good. You good?
I'm good. I love that stretch. That's
something I prepared earlier.
So,
I think
yeah, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. It's just so true. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No, awesome, Cass. Thank you.
All right, dudes.